discussion is regarding lymph and lymphatic system. You know that about 1/6 of the body's space is interstitium. That is the space between the cells, space which is not occupied by the cells. And this is the extracellular space. And this space contains fluid in which all your body cells are bathing. It is as if fish are roaming in the sea. Similarly, they are also drowned in this fluid, thus your cells. This is part of the extracellular fluid, another part of which is the blood, extracellular. Interstitium has two major types of the solid structures, which means that apart from the fluid and the liquid portion, it also contains some solid structure in the form of a skeleton. One is the collagen fibers, and second is the proteoglycan filaments in the form of hyaluronic acid and proteins, but they are extremely thin, can only be seen with electron microscope. Now the question arises, from where does this fluid come? This fluid, that's the interstitial fluid or extracellular fluid, is coming from the blood capillaries through the process of diffusion and there is a huge amount of fluid which must be kept in circulation as well, like all your fluids inside your body, to keep the balance of the fluids in different departments. As I told you, it is drained by filtration from the capillaries and diffusion from the capillaries. It resembles plasma with some differences, like proteins are less in it, but these less proteins are also of great importance because the proteins which come out with the help, with the process and diffusion from the capillaries, they cannot gain re-entry into the capillaries, so they have to be dumped in the interstitial space. And in this way, a body will lose so much proteins from the blood. Oncotic pressure blood becomes almost zero. And you know, when the oncotic pressure, which keeps the fluid inside the capillaries and the blood vessels, if that is reduced, whole of the fluid from the blood will go out and the person will go into hypovolemia and shock, and one dies within 24 hours. To prevent this, nature has provided you with the phenomenon of re-entry of these proteins which have come out of the capillaries, blood capillaries. Now they have to be taken back to the blood. Another vascular system has been created, and that is called the lymphatic channels. You also know that once this interstitial fluid gets entry into the lymphatic channels, it becomes lymph. The same interstitial fluid which was stored over there in the interstitium, the moment it enters into the lymphatic vessels, we call it a lymph. Lymphatic capillaries are the small lymphatic channels which originate in the interstitium. They are like the blood capillaries, but with few differences. And one of the difference is that they are more porous, more wider as compared to the blood capillaries. The cell arrangement in these vascular tubes or the vessels is in such a way, it is evident from the diagram. The figure shows elongated cells united at the ends, but there is a special arrangement for their placement. I'll give you an example. If you take 3 or 4 pieces of pipes and you want to make them into one pipe, you connect them with one another in such a way that pipe number one, which the head of the pipe number one should be inserted into the tail of the pipe number two. I hope you can make a picture in your mind. Then this means pipe number one and number two are united now, and they are making one piece. Now lift this piece and insert the head of the pipe number two into the tail of pipe number three. And in this way you go on. The result is that a long pipe you can make with this special arrangement that each head is inserted into the tail of the next one. इसका फायदा ये होता है open in one direction because the flow of the lymph is from the interstitium towards the heart, like in the veins. So veins are those vessels which carry blood back to the heart. Lymphatic system is more near to the venous system rather than the arterial system. Except MBBS. This is a mnemonic I have made it for you, which means that some parts of the body do not have proper lymphatics, like endomysium of the muscles, like brain, like bone, like outer surface of the skin. ये निमानिक बनाया है MBBS, आपको याद रहेगा इंशाल्लाह कि but since the lymphatic system is not properly developed over there, but even then they have got some pre-lymphatics because they also need this drainage. Their small vessels are called pre-lymphatics. All lymph from the lower half, now this lymph, which is made at the rate of 2 to 3 liters per day, and it has to be returned to the general circulation to save both the sides, to maintain the volume of the blood. And number two, to clear the interstitium so that it gets rid of the excess fluid. And in this way, the proteins are also sent back to the blood. Now, all lymph from the lower half of the body, that's both the legs, the lower abdomen as well, and the left upper half, they drain into one channel that is called thoracic duct, which joins the venous system at point where left jugular vein and left subclavian vein unite. You know through your anatomy these situations. Similarly, lymph from the right upper half of the body that has got a separate channel, which is called the right lymphatic duct. It joins the right jugular vein. As the thoracic duct joins the left jugular vein, it the right lymphatic duct from the right upper half of the body that drains into right jugular vein. The terminal lymphatic capillaries have got more permeability as compared to the blood capillaries, and they at the start their ends are a bit swollen in the form of bulbs, which are having some muscular fibers around it, which when contracted, they create some pressure which pushes the lymph ahead. Hello? Now you see the picture. The right upper half, right arm, right upper chest, right side of the neck and face, that's colored blue. It drains into right lymphatic duct, while the rest of the body, which is colored in pink, means the whole lower half and upper half right, sorry, left, upper half left. It drains into the thoracic duct. This is the drainage. And you can imagine if there is a block to the flow, then the part being drained will swell up. You also know that the fluid oozes out from the capillary at the arterial end because of high pressure over there, high hydrostatic pressure, and it is absorbed back into the capillaries, the same capillaries, but at the venous end. But not the whole fluid which has oozed out will go back into the capillaries, blood capillaries. Rather, 90% goes and 10% remains in the interstitium. And this 10% each time, if it is accumulated over there, then that will cause a havoc. So this 10% of the fluid, which remains in the interstitial fluid, becomes the lymph then, and it enters into the lymphatic channels. Cell arrangement, you have already seen it. The initial part of the lymph vessels, as I told earlier as well, is a bit expanded in the form of a bulb with some muscles around it so that they can work like a small pump, which when they contract, they push the accumulated fluid, accumulated lymph ahead. As I told you, like the venous system, small lymph capillaries unite to make larger ones. As you know that veins unite and unite to make the bigger veins, while arteries divide and divide to make the smaller arteries. So they are more like the veins. They grow larger and larger till they drain into the thoracic duct. And you also saw the thoracic duct is situated on the left side, and the left whole half, lower half, and right left upper half is drained into this. Both of these main ducts of the lymph enter into the venous system. Then we come across another point, that is these lymph nodes, these lymph channels have also got nodular structures, small glandular structures, they are situated in the course of the lymph vessels. They are like checkposts. When you travel on highways, you come across barriers or the checkposts where you are being checked. And if found fit, you are allowed to go. Similarly, the lymph nodes, they are the checkers. They are situated at different positions and different points in the body, like popliteal fossa behind the knee, like the groin where your leg meets your body, in the abdomen alongside the aorta, similarly in the chest, in the neck, in the axilla, in the elbow. So these were the few main points where these lymph nodes are situated. And as such, they are not palpable, but when some infection arises in the drained area, then those lymph nodes, they swell up because they have to fight the infection. And when they swell up, then it is palpable to you you can feel them with the fingers. This condition is called lymph. Lymph gland, also called lymph nodule. You can see the dented portion and the circular round portion. The extreme right, you can see the arrow which shows that the lymph vessels is entering over here. This is the entry of the lymph. It then circulates throughout the nodule, and then at the left side, you can see the exit arrow. So whatever noxious material is found in the lymph, that is kept aside and captured by the lymph node, and the rest of the lymph is allowed to go back, to go ahead. And what can be that noxious material? Usually bacteria. So the macrophages present in the lymph node, they come into action and destroy that noxious material, that bacterium. But in this process, they also swell up. जिस तरह आप बिल्ली को डराएं, it swells up. अपने बाल खड़े कर देती है to make herself big. Probably ये भी ऐसा ही करता है. Metabolism इसकी ज़्यादा हो जाती है to make itself fit for the battle with the bacteria. And after the infection is over, they come back to the normal size when they are not palpable then. Sometimes cancerous material also invades it and they become enlarged as well in these areas. There is one condition called glandular fever in which there is huge lymphadenopathy, enlargement of the lymph nodes at different points. Anyhow, as I told you that the macrophages then so rightly they are called defense barriers. The same thing that in infection they swell up and generalized lymphadenopathy in glandular fever, which is actually a viral condition. Now, if you come to the composition of the lymph, it depends on the area which they are. It contains a lot of mud. And it tells you that from which, if it is coming
सर आवाज बया बंद शो सर ستاسو
elbow, axilla, neck, thorax, abdomen, groin, knee, etc. It functions like check posts.
सर लग रिपीट के ورته دا بیک نه دا سر आवाज تاسو بیا کټ شوی واغه ځین بیا ریپیټ کړئ
بل سمجھ نه کته کنه throughout your body, what I was telling you, like points of where you can find the lymph nodes, elbow, axilla, neck, thorax, abdomen, and the groin. So these are the areas where lymph nodes can easily be palpated or seen through X-ray if they are enlarged particularly. As I told you, they function like the check posts. जिस तरह मैंने आपको मिसाल दी कि if you are traveling on a highway and you are checked at different points and if allowed, if found fit for the journey ahead, you are allowed to go. Similarly, the lymph which comes, that is the nodes and what noxious material that is trapped over there, and the rest of the lymph nodes are blocked and allowed to go ahead. Noxious materials में toxins होते हैं, bacteria वगैरह. The macrophages in the lymph node destroy those bacteria, so they are rightly called defense barriers. And whenever there is infection in some area, then the area which is drained by these lymph nodes, they become swollen. And that might be the presenting complaint of the patient, that I have got nodules in the axilla, for example, or nodules in the elbow, and then you come to know that it is because of infection down in the area. Sometimes generalized lymph nodes enlargement occurs, like glandular fever. It's a viral fever, or sometimes in cancer even. So these lymph nodes, they swell up, and the condition is called generalized lymphadenopathy. Then I was discussing the composition of the lymph nodes, and I told you that the area which they drain, the composition of the lymph depends on that. For example, lymph which is coming from the liver will be having a lot of proteins, where proteins are synthesized in huge quantity. Similarly, if the lymph is coming from the intestines, then it will be having a lot of fats, because the fats which you ingest, they are absorbed through the intestines. They are absorbed. 120 milliliter of lymph per hour is accumulated, and it is drained into the system, out of which 100 is drained by the thoracic duct, while 20 ml is drained by the right lymphatic duct, जो कि सिर्फ upper portion, right half of the body, upper half of the body को drain करता था. The flow is increased by increasing the lymphatic channels. And that is very simple. For example, if somebody stretches your arms, your body, when you are fatigued, then that increases the lymphatic flow too much. And they are so sensitive that even the arteries which travel in an area where the lymphatics are channels are also there, the pulsation of the arteries also help in flow of the lymphatic fluid. Usually it's a clear fluid with 96% water and 4% solids, but the one which comes from the intestine having a lot of fats, so that is a bit milky. Now this is, if you look at this picture, the legs of this person are hugely swollen, like elephants. That's why this condition is called elephantiasis as well. There is huge accumulation of the interstitial fluid in these areas because of the blockage of the lymphatics, usually by special worm, Wuchereria bancrofti, a filarium. The condition is called filariasis as well. These are the small worms. They lodge in the lymphatic system and ultimately their huge population blocks these lymphatics. The result is development of edema in the legs, becoming too large and too huge, like those of the elephants. So the condition is also called elephantiasis. Now, not necessarily blocked by these worms, can be because of the cancerous conditions as well, and so many other things. Similarly, when infection occurs, then the lymph nodes enlarge and they become swollen and they become tender as well. They are usually painful. And in such condition, the person develops fever even. With this, we come to the summary of the functions of the lymphatic system. Now I'll just give a brief revision that lymph is derived from the interstitial fluid. When it enters into the lymphatic channels, the vessels are the tubes for transfer of this fluid back into the venous system. This fluid is this interstitial fluid, once it enters into the lymphatic channel, is called lymph. In this way, big particles which have come out of the blood capillaries, like proteins, they are returned back to the blood because there is no other way. Proteins which come out of the capillaries, particularly at the arterial end, cannot regain entry into the capillary blood. So in this way, the lymphatic system and the lymph adjusts the redistribution of the fluid in the body. They also help in defense via entrapment of bacteria, entrapment of the toxins in the lymph nodes, the defense points in the way of the lymph vessels. They also help in the transportation of the lymphocytes, the bigger cells, increasing the immunity and wherever they are needed. Absorption of the big particles of the fats from the intestinal tract is also one of their function. Hope you have heard it and understood it. Anyhow, if there is some question, please say.